here, and today we're going to look at how to modify a position while the robot's running. There are restrictions to using what's called the hot edit feature on the ABB pendant. The hot edit feature can be found under the main menu. When I select the main menu, it's the first option, hot edit. And this will allow us to modify positions while the robot's running. And we can do this with numerical values. But this is only good if you're going to modify positions by a very small amount. If I'm going to do it by, say, 100 millimeters or something like that, I cannot use this option. I'm going to have to use this option if I'm going to do 5 millimeters or less. So this is really good for tweaking code. Say you've got a weld point that you need to move 2.1 millimeters or 1.8 millimeters to get that perfect weld. And in that case, then the hot edit is a very handy feature. The things to take into consideration on this are the fact that positive and negative are a completely different direction. And if I get my values wrong, then I could end up crashing the robot's tooling into something, crashing the robot itself. I could end up with a lot of situations, a lot of bad situations. So we'll start off with this little sample program I've written here. And as we can see, it's just a side-to-side program. It's just the robot moving in, basically. Even though these are joint moves, it's just basically making a line across here through a series of 5 motions. Now notice that I have the generic asterisk for 2 of these positions in this program. I'm using P10 twice in this program, and I'm using P40 once as the endpoint of this program. So I have 2 points here, P10 and P40, that I named. And by naming these points, then we have the ability to use the hot edit feature. With the asterisk option, I cannot use hot edit, and we're going to see that in a moment. We'll prove that true. So now what I want to do here is go to my hot edit screen, and I want to modify this P40. Then what I have to do is just go to hot edit. I go to hot edit, and it's going to bring me to this screen. On this screen, it will have a list of all the modules that have named points in them. If it does not have named points, points that are defined by name, like P1, P2, P10, pickup point, drop-off point, weld point, things like that. Anything that's named is going to show up here inside this folded module here. When I unfold the module, then I'll see that I got routine 2. Now I know I have a routine 1 on this controller too. So why is it not showing up? The reason routine 1 is not showing up is because I did not name the points in it. Now when I unfold routine 2 here, I'll see the only 2 positions showing up are P10 and P40. It does not show up the generic asterisk positions. You cannot modify those numerically. You have to modify those physically, at least through this particular process. There are other ways we'll talk about later. Now, as I select the point off the list, when I highlight the point, I'm going to use the arrow to push it over to the tuning side. I push it over, and what do I see here? I see, hey, P10 has already been offset 4.7 millimeters. So that's a pretty handy feature that it tells me how far this point has already been offset. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to select P40 here and push it over, and I see P40 has no offset. And that's what the hot edit feature basically is offsetting positions. There's an offset function also on the teach pendant that we can use in our code. That's just a different way that we can do the same thing, and we can do it with higher values using the offset. But there again, to use the offset, we have to take the robot offline. So I'm going to highlight P40 here, and I'm going to tap Tune Targets. And it's going to take me to this screen. Now on this screen, I have a few options that I have to determine here. The first is, what type of offset do I want? Do I want a linear offset, which is a change in X, a change in Y, or a change in Z? Delta means change in. So do I want to change this position on the X axis, the Y or Z, or a combination of them? I can do a combination if I choose to. Reorientation, when we select it, we'll see that this changes to degrees. So that's a little harder to calculate than linear. External axis. Let's say I had a linear slide. This robot was on some type of cat track or something, and I needed to modify that position. And I needed to modify that position for the external axis. I could do that here while it's running also. I'm going to choose linear. Work object or tool. This is the coordinate system that you're going to perform the offset in. If we look at this robot here, we'll see that the tool coordinate system, which is these green, red, and blue arrows that I have coming off of tool 0 here, the flange of axis 6, we can see the direction they point in. So if I choose tool and I make a change, it's going to make that change in the direction of the axis relative to the tool. When I choose work object, then it's going to do one of two things. It's going to make this change relative to the work object. Say I'm in a production line and I have a car coming across the conveyor and the car is my work object, then it's going to change the position relative to that work object. And in this case though, of what I'm doing, I do not have a work object taught for this particular system, so I'm using what's called work object 0 or the robot's base. Using work object 0, you are essentially basing the motion off the robot's base. Right, so in this case, what we're going to do is use the work object. So I want to make this change relative to the robot's base. Now when you select work object, what it's going to do is it's going to look at the line of code that you have taught, and in that line of code, the work object that's defined is the work object's coordinate system it will offset this position relative to. So it bases the work object off of what you have in your code. So at this point, I wanted to go negative 2.8. So our increments are how far it's going to increment every time I press plus or minus. If I choose 5 and I say negative, then it goes negative 5, positive 5. And I can keep going up. It'll let me keep counting, but it's not going to apply that. Watch, apply, yes, value not within limits. I have to be less than 5 millimeters here. All right, so I'm going to take it back to 0. We can use any combination of these we want to, as long as we stay within that range. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to modify it 1 millimeter on the y-axis. Now this is going to be a change that we're not going to be able to visually see. So that's why it's important to have the math correct. If I need a larger change, I need to do it a different way. So change in Y, a positive 1 millimeter. Yes, and there we go. And now we can see that this is offset 1 millimeter. The only problem is it doesn't tell me which direction or which axis it was offset in. All right, so that's a pretty easy process. Let's run through it again. First, we decide which position that we want to make the change on, P40 in this case. We go to Hot Edit. We select the appropriate module and then select the appropriate point name. Now here I'm going to tune the target, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that offset away. So I'm just going to bring it back down 1 millimeter here, negative 1, apply, yes, and now there is no offset. So it's a really easy process to do, just a couple things to remember. You can't make a huge change using this option, but you can make a small change. If I need to change a position just by a millimeter, or especially when I have a precise value, 1.1 millimeters, 2.5, things like that, then I'm able to make this change. Now you're not always going to be able to make it, because sometimes a change in the program will cause a change in the robot's configuration, which means the robot may not be able to get to that position. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be putting out more videos on ABB, Kawasaki, Nachi, Kuka, Staubli, and even some Fanuc. So I'm trying to expand. I've been programming for over 30 years, and I programmed a lot of different robots, so I'm trying to expand and have videos, especially the basic starting videos for each of the robots out there. But I want to make sure there's demand for it before I put too much time into it. So make sure to share the videos, like and subscribe, and tell your friends about it. Hopefully I can produce an entire series. My goal here is to go through the entire pendant and show you everything that you need to know about this pendant, every feature, every point of access, everything that we can do, and then getting into Rapid, the programming language. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope the video helps, and for now, Gold out.